the rain falling on borders. The border between Tennessee and Georgia has slackened, so perhaps there is a slightly larger glimmer of hope for a better turnout. When the weather is bad, the turnout will be depressed even more. Voting is a fading prospect, a fading public activity. In 2016, in Hamilton County, there was a 15.6% voter turnout. In 2014, it was 26%. Back in '94, the highest year that I could find, looking at a 2016 TFP article about the problem, it was 41%. Fewer people are voting. Voting seems to matter less and less. And you, my listener, you're conflicted about it, probably in the same way that I am. You think it's important, that there's a duty involved in it. There's a care for the larger good. There's the idea of the Commonwealth, the value of our people, the value of place, the significance of place, Chattanooga, Hamilton County, in the state of Tennessee, in the federal system. And you may not think a lot about that, but you do have some sense in your mind that it's important to vote, and we all should vote, but you're just not going to get around to it today. You've got too many things to do, right? You have a brother in town, and he needs some help in his finances, and so you're going to talk with him, and that takes up the morning. This morning, that very thing happened to me. My brother, looking at his as an artist and looking at his estate, we've determined that his collection of work, his gigantic body of work built over 30 years, is going to be cared for by his niece, my daughter, who's a sculptor and artist. And so we're putting things in trust. And today we did the part at Bank of America in Hickson. We went in there, and he had the notary observe his signing the creation of two trusts to handle the funding of the trust that is the vehicle for the management of his estate. That would be the collection and the funding to get that collection out to make it profitable for the people. So there you go, right? Some detail of your personal life, something like that. Or maybe you have a car repair. Maybe there's a complication in the routines today. Your wife is doing something, the children are involved. She's got to get someone somewhere else, and you are kind of mixed in that, and yet you've got pressing business today. And it's voting day. You didn't vote early. You kept putting it off. The last day for early voting passed, and you're wondering if you're going to get around to it today, just in the press of ordinary life and business. And you think you're busy. Well, think about people who have two jobs, right? There are people who may have lost one of two jobs and have just one job, and they're scrambling for online applications now, and they just can't get to voting. Somehow the public wheel, the public wealth, the benefits of having good government just fade in the claims they have upon your attention. And so you are not going to vote today, you think. Well, there's one side that defends that, right? Not voting is rational. And in fact, in elections, more and more, the majority vote is, well, I'm not going to get to it. I may be registered, and I know my registration will fade if I don't vote this time. Some people are perhaps recognizing I won't be able to vote unless I re-enter the system for next go around. And somehow, well, you're just not going to think that far ahead, and it just doesn't matter that much. And is it irrational to not vote? Or somehow are we shooting ourselves in the foot by not voting? Is the majority wrong, and is the minority who will vote right? The minority today in governor elections, in federal Senate elections, and two House district elections in the Chattanooga area, these are primaries. Do we care enough to go out of our way, especially in rain, to go to our polling station near where we live? This is David Toulis, and thanks for tuning in. 92.7 FM and 95.3 FM HD4, the high definition station that we have. It reaches out 65 miles from our tower, that object of steel that some would say is a work of art, being the thing that makes me the blogger with the biggest pen. David Tulis, the blogger, with a very, very tall pen to make note of things and to encourage the right direction of the people who matter. And that is always my audience, the people who matter. As a writer, blogger at Nukenomics.com, our sponsor, and as your mild-mannered host here, who read today Daniel chapter 4. I was reading in Daniel, and I said today I'm going to make time to not neglect the word as I have in the past few days, and read also. I was reading in my Louis II French edition Bible that I have going, and then the Matthew Henry commentary in one volume. I read the chapter 4, and very, very encouraged about that story of the pagan king, right, who lives in dread of God, whose servant Daniel revealed to him the dream that he had about the tree. That was a dream suggesting that he was going to be chopped down, and as he was for as long as 7 years, according to the record cited by Matthew Henry. He was an imbecile and an insane man, drooling from his beard until God restored him. And he has in that volume tremendous things to say about how God disposes of great monarchs who control by their hand the whole known world at the time. So these are people with greater authority than Esther Hilton would ever dream of having, as or Jonathan Mason, her rival from the GOP primary, that they will have as representatives in the popular house, right, the public house, the people's house in the General Assembly in Nashville. And so we have the idea of representative government and voting, and I'm just let me tell you what I think about voting and something to compare it with. And you might think this is just changing the subject, but it's not. If you are a juror in a trial, federal trial or a county state trial, you are far more important than a voter. And I think jury roles come from the voting rolls. So I would encourage you to maintain your vote, if only for the benefit of being called to jury service. Now, I know there are libertarians and voluntarists who say that you should never, ever dream of being on a jury. And yet the jury it comes from God, right? The idea of the jury comes from God. The old Hebrew Republic had effectively juries, and that would be in the requirement for 2 or 3 witnesses to determine whether there had been a murder. So we had to have witnesses, and there were lower courts among the tribes. There were lower level authorities like neighborhood authorities who could settle disputes. And if you have a real criminal matter, there's no in that country there was no distinction between civil and criminal. But if there was a crime, let's say a rape or a murder or a theft or a deception in the use of weights by the merchant, there would be the people would judge on it, and you have lower level judges and higher level judges. So there's a very democratic flavor. The jury is something where the people judge the law, and in Georgia, it's very clear that authority exists. And in fact, there's a column by a man named Torpy writing about an act of jury nullification that freed a man who openly admitted to a juror. His name is Giovanni McCoy. His attorney, Catherine Bernard, in Atlanta, defended him, and she said, "Well, look, you decided to fight these charges, and you need this marijuana for your medical purposes, and this was discovered in the circumstances related in this column." And you have the best thing you can do is try to connect with the jurors. And she convinced her client to admit to the jury why it was he needed to have marijuana. And it's called jury nullification. Mrs. Bernard or Ms. Bernard does not necessarily like that term because she thinks it scares people off. And what she prefers to say, well, it's just simply the judging of the law, right? You're judging 2 things: the law and the application of the law to the facts. Giovanni told the jury, marijuana makes you eat. It makes you feel calm. It made me relax. It helps me with my pain. He hustles for his living. He paints landscapes, sells fish, drives people to the store. We had a jury you could relate to, he says. Truck drivers, mechanics, construction people who worked. They saw I wasn't bothering nobody. That's what I believe they felt. And the lawyer tells this columnist that she doesn't coach her clients. She lets them speak honestly to connect with the jury members themselves. I think they appreciated his honesty, she says. She also helped in another case, North Georgia authorities to drop charges against the parents of a boy who they allowed to smoke pot to help combat seizures. The jury shall be the judges of the law and the facts. She cites the Georgia Constitution. The Tennessee Constitution has a like provision. And I think I want to just mention it to you because when you are the juror, you are far, far more, I would say, many thousands times more valuable and important to liberty and the people and the political process itself. Politics is not just elections, okay? And voting is an important check, an important block against the abuse of the law by the state. And even in a civil trial, if you're the juror, you are deciding there the law and the facts, right? You're deciding what is the operating principle of justice in a dispute, let's say a business dispute, or maybe a dispute over an accident, over an unmoored boat, or a runaway lawnmower, or stone thrown by the teenage boy through the window, hitting the old woman there at her coffee and her Times Free Press. Injuring her badly. I mean, there's a trial and you're the juror. So what is the law in that matter? And so you're judging the facts and you're judging the law. The law, again, sometimes arises from the facts. There's no contract, right? In the case of the woman bleeding in her coffee there from the stone thrown from the mower. There's no law there, but there is some right and wrong that you're judging. So you're judging the facts and you're judging the law. In Tennessee, just FYI, okay, and you need to know this because you, my listener, love liberty and you want to help people, right? You want to help people, and you think if you're a voter, you're helping people. Well, you're really not, okay? And we'll get to it, okay? We can't say it all at once, so you just have to bear with me through time. On the David Tula Show, the number is 800-8949, 800-8949. That's 800, okay? 800-8949. Now, in the Constitution, the part about the judging of the law and the fact, and judges hate this, okay? Judges hate this, and lawyers are scared about it, so they won't tell you about it, and they will not. Lawyers will not ever bring up the fact that you have that authority, and judges declaim against it, saying that, well, no, I tell you what the law is, and you obey me. I'm telling you the law. You just apply the law to the facts. Well, okay, all right, we can grant that. Judge Greenholz, but or Judge the federal judge will grant that. But we are going to apply the law to the facts as we see them. Okay, it's always as we see them because you have a veto power. You, the listener, on a jury, have a veto power on the law. If you're a voter, all you have, you have hardly any power at all. As a voter, you're voting for the individual. You're not voting on the what and the why and the how of that individual going to the assembly and writing a law or writing a bill to become a law or voting on a bill to become a law. I mean, it's very, very remote, right? You're highly removed from the process of the writing of yet one more law that the good people have piled high already with laws, and one more now going onto that. The printing press is the area where this provision comes up, okay? And it's kind of by the way. It's not a direct statement. It's a statement, by the way, and it deals with the idea of the press being free, and but then it drifts down in Section 19 in the Bill of Rights. It drifts down into being responsible in the use of the press and the use of speech, and it says in prosecutions for the publication of papers investigating the official conduct of officers, right? That would be cops, mayors, council members, commissioners, representatives, or men in public capacity. The truth thereof may be given in evidence. In other words, if an official accuses you of some evil, the facts, and often the law itself, are in evidence. And in all indictments, it goes on to say, for libel, okay, now we have a part about libel where you're slandering, the writer or the publisher slanders someone. The jury shall have a, here we go. The jury shall have a right to determine the law and the facts under the direction of the court, as in other criminal cases. So notice here, libel is assumed to be a crime. And it says that there is direction from the court. Okay, that's fine. But the jury shall have the right to determine the law and the facts, as in other criminal cases. So the right to judge the law is not just something that applies to a libel case, okay, which is viewed here in the Constitution as a criminal matter, not as, I think, in practice today, a civil matter. So you have the right to judge the law and the fact. Now, the problem with elections, which are fading in their significance for various reasons, and maybe you can tell me what you think the reasons. Why do people not vote? Why? How about this? Why don't you, my listener, tell me why you're not going to get around to vote today? And then maybe if you are someone who intends to vote, well, tell me why. Because the reasons to vote are valuable as well. Though I think the venue of one casting his vote into, right? There's a pool of reality. Okay, and when you vote, you cast your opinion for candidate A or candidate B into that pool. Okay, that area in which the vote is cast is on the margin. It's no longer central. It has been highly marginalized. In other words, it's on the side of things. It doesn't really affect the essence of government, the essence of the modern state, the modern political economy, state-controlled economy that we have today. And that's why people reasonably understand that. They may not be able to explain it as well as you might, right? But they see that somehow it doesn't really matter. Even if you have a godly candidate, right? Even if you have a candidate the same color as you, right? Even if you have a candidate who's the same sex as you, right? Whatever reason that you might give for voting for one or the other, you may think that's good and you feel gratified by that. But in the end, it really can't change things for better, really, or for better or for worse. But, Trump, we are the Trump station here. We are the Sean Hannity station here at 92.7 FM and 95.3 FM HD4. By the way, live on Facebook, and do tune in. And if you, my listener, have a late model television, it has YouTube already built in as a channel, and we are live there too. Just type in Nougat Radio and make us the default TV station at your house. And rather than watch the soaps, watch David Toulis and learn something. Maybe keep connected with your town. I want you, my listener, to think that your town matters, that Chattanooga is the center of the universe, and that you, and I would say, I would append, by God's providence, okay, you may not agree with that, but you, by God's providence, are here, and you have a purpose here, right? You're not in some other place. You're not in some other time. You're here for a reason. And the reason is because God is the creator. Everything that happens for a personal reason, right? Not your person. Yes, your person, indeed, but the person of God, right? He controls things. He ordains things, and nothing happens by mistake. There are no contingencies. There are no accidents if God is God. So just assume, you may not be a Christian, but just assume that that's the case, okay? And you're here for a reason. What is the reason? How can you make yourself valuable for other people? Your clients in your business? Absolutely. You can start there. Your wife, your children, your neighbor. These are people to whom you, my listener, are to be valuable. And that's what I do here on the David Toulis Show. I say, love your neighbor and buy local. That's my slogan. It's not trademarked, and you may take it with you. Now, jury power, but even jury power, and I want to mention, it's a great power. It's so great of a power that the state has short-circuited it. And do you know how the state has short-circuited jury power? You're not going to believe this, but it just occurred to me in a kind of epiphany, right? A sudden flash of insight. Just about an hour ago, I was sitting in my little cubbyhole office here at the studio, and it just occurred to me, well, how is jury power been thwarted? And it's been thwarted by a good thing. And look, the world is complicated. Okay, it's not simple. We do not live in a cartoon reality. The power of the jury has been short-circuited by a state program called the Public Defender's Office. And here's what happens: the Public Defender's Office has the hoi polloi, right? The common poor people who are the fodder for the court system, right? The court is designed for them. The court is constantly dragging poor people, African Americans, immigrants, the orphan and the widow into its maw because it needs to have some sustenance. And it does that on poor people who can't afford an attorney. So what now? Well, in these petty criminal cases, of which there are thousands and thousands every year in Hamilton County, the public defender's office is there to make a plea bargain, and everybody plea bargains. Hardly any case goes to trial, and so this system of the public defender, which is good, right? You have a right to counsel of your choice. And now the guy from the state, his best advice is, I think you should be prudent and just take the offer from the DA's office. And no one does any lawyering anymore. There's no real criminal cases heard anymore, hardly. It's all by negotiations. Guess how sloppy police work comes when the cop knows that it's never going to get to trial, and his perjury and careless deeds are not going to be uncovered. David Tool, Listening Radio.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
Authorities in North Georgia say marijuana was sold right out in the open, labeled as a non-THC containing herb. Riskil Kumar